Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Melton. I'm the Director of Public Works and Transportation. I welcome you here this evening for a briefing on the UP Railroad project that's going to start here in a couple of days. Let me make a few introductions before I start my presentation. Let me introduce the council members that are here. Council Member Capehart and Council Member Wildman and Lana Wolf. I think Council Member Gillespie just walked in, if I'm not mistaken. Council Member, I think Mr. Parker's here in the back. Thank you, Council Member Parker. And I think I've caught everybody. Also in the back of the room is City Manager Trey Yelverton. And two of our Deputy City Managers, Mr. Don Jakeway and Theron Bowman is here. We also have a couple of, let's see, I can see Jeff Johnson from UTA is here. We have a couple of representatives, one from UP, Clint Sabisky, is here in the front of the room, and Mr. Jay Burke, who's road safe, doing all the barricading and traffic control for UP. He's in the back of the room. And okay, let me give you a quick outline of what we're going to talk about this evening. Yeah, let's see. There we go. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the project. I'm going to show you a short, I believe, 7 or 8 minute video of this pretty unique piece of equipment. It's called a TRT, Track Renewal Train, kind of how it'll operate, so you give an idea of what you will see as this train moves through town. We'll talk a little bit about traffic control, alternative routes, bottom line, what to expect from this project, our public communication, the internet, some of the news network things that we've done to help communicate this, and then we'll open it up at the very end to questions and answers. As most of you know, if you've seen the newspaper or the Web City's website, I believe it's been on the news just a little bit, is this project is a UP project to replace the main lines, just the north main line, from Fort Worth to Dallas. Basically, they're working their way from Fort Worth east to Dallas. It's about 13 miles of track that they'll be replacing. Again, it's a specialized piece of equipment that's called a TRT 909. It's a one continuous process. Basically, it removes the wooden cross ties, removes the existing rail, replaces the wooden cross ties with concrete cross ties that will last much longer, replaces, puts down new rail, puts it in place, and then come back in and puts down new rock, elevates the rail to the grade it's supposed to be at, and put down the new ballast or rock underneath, and that's underneath the track. Again, that's just one continuous operation. You'll see a little bit more detail. The video will show that in a lot more detail. What you'll see before and after this very long train, it's approximately sometimes I guess it varies in length. It can be up to 6 miles in length, this continuous operation, and it can put down about 2 miles of rail a day. But what you'll see before and after is you have crews coming in at all the road crossings to remove the concrete pads, the crossings, so when the train comes through, it can do its work as far as the ties and the railroad. And then you'll have a crew that comes in after this train passes through that will actually come in and replace the crossings at each roadway intersection, the concrete pads, to hopefully make those crossings smooth. Again, so it's kind of a 3-step process if you want to look at it that way. The project did start on January 3rd. It started in Fort Worth, and it's progressed to the east. They're, I believe, right on schedule as far as we know. Weather does impact them a little bit. Typically, it's just the cold, freezing weather. I think most times they work in just about any weather conditions because they travel all over the country with this machine. So they're used to working in bad weather, probably a lot colder climates, snow, a lot worse weather than what we have here. But again, they did start January 13th. They are on schedule to start here on January 16th. I'll talk a little bit more on the schedule, exactly what that means to you as far as each crossing goes as they move from a westerly to an easterly direction. Bowen Road, it says here in the presentation that Bowen Road is scheduled to be closed intermittently closed on January 16th, which is Wednesday. I can tell you, even as of today, that's changed a little bit. Right now, that Bowen Road, they plan on leaving that open except for just a very short time. It's going to vary a little bit, 4 to 6 hours. Again, don't hold me exactly to that, but on the rather than the 16th, you'll see a little bit of a road closure. Typically, I believe what we're being told is in the morning if everything goes according to schedule, about 4 to 6 hours Thursday morning, the 17th. Other than that, Bowen Road should be open at all times. What they're going to do is basically with this specialized piece of equipment is they're basically going to skip the crossing at Bowen Road. And they'll come back in after this project's done and this equipment's moved on to another part of the country, is they'll come up with crews that are just local here, and they'll actually redo the crossing on Bowen Road at a later date. Again, we'll give you the details once we get that information, when and how long. So that's a bit of good news. In our workings with UP, they've heard our concerns. Arlington's a little bit unique because we have so many crossings in a short length, and they were willing to do what they could to help minimize the impact of this project. So they've looked at, come up with the alternative to keep Bowen Road open, except for just that short period of time. There may be some intermittent closings after that for a short time, for a few minutes here or there, but again, for all intents and purposes, Bowen Road will be open except for just that short time on Thursday the 17th that morning. And again, all the dates I'm going to give you are tentative, naturally subject to equipment failures, weather, things like that. So bear with me a little bit on the dates. We're giving you the best information we know at this time, but also be aware that arlingtontx.gov, you'll be able to go on site and see an up-to-date live schedule progress as the project's moving through. So that's where you're probably going to get your best information. And let me correct that website. I knew I said it wrong. It's myarlingtontx.com. Sorry about that. What you'll see a little bit later is typically the road closures will last about 3 to 4 days at each crossing. We anticipate Cooper Street, since it's much wider in length, that crossing may be closed up to 6 or 7 days. Again, that's for the crews to come before and after this equipment goes through. Right now, the tentative schedule anticipates that, again, basically you're going to have, once Bowen Road is closed, or once they get past Bowen Road, on the 17th, you'll have Davis Drive will be the first closure, and that will be on Thursday the 17th. And as they move easterly, you'll have a continuation of multiple crossings will be closed at once. What is the plan is, before Stadium Drive is closed, hopefully Davis Drive will open again. That's the plan, but realize plans are subject to change. So that way you only have Davis, Cooper, Center, Mesquite, and Collins closed at once. And then when Stadium Drive, the 6th crossing would close, hopefully Davis Drive will be open at that time. Great Southwest is our last crossing in Arlington. That will be closed, and again, that'll happen at the tail end of the schedule. And I'll show you the dates here on the next slide. Stadium Drive, or the Great Southwest, will be closed approximately 2 weeks because UP works on a schedule. I believe they work 8 days and then they take off a few days because this crew is working continuous 8 days, 12-hour time frames. Basically, they're going to work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and those are rough, and sometimes they may start a little bit earlier and end a little bit later, but typically they're working on average 12-hour days. So after 8 days, by union contract, they have to take days off. That's why Great Southwest will be closed up to 2 weeks. Okay, y'all can see a little bit better behind me. I've already talked about a little bit about Bowen Road. Again, that'll just be an intermittent closing. Again, hopefully just the morning of the 17th. Davis Drive will close on the 17th. That'll be the first real hard closure. That'll be closed for 3 to 4 days. That's on Thursday the 17th. Cooper Street will be the next crossing. And Friday the 18th, as you can see here by the schedule, that's where you have the 3 crossings, Cooper, Center, and Mesquite, in conjunction with Davis Drive that's already closed. So come Friday, you will have all 4 crossings closed at once. Come Saturday, the 5th crossing, continuous crossing, will be closed, and that's Collins Street. And then as they move easterly, Stadium Drive will also close on Saturday, the 19th, but hopefully, again, Davis Drive will be open at that point. There may be some overlap there, so again, just take that into consideration when you look at your schedules and your routings, depending where you need to be going during those time frames. And as I briefly already talked about, Great Southwest will be closed beginning on Monday the 21st, which is basically the tail end of their 8-day work schedule. A couple of days later, that's when their 8-day crew needs to take a break, and they'll come back, go back to work, and that crossing will be approximately opened on February 3rd. And this is a short video showing this track removal train, kind of its operation. Again, it's a very unique piece of equipment.
Welcome to the Track Renewal Group with the TRT 909. Over the next few minutes, we would like to show you some of the operations and the general scope of work involved in the track renewal process. As the name implies, the track renewal is the removal of the existing track and the installation of a completely new track consisting of concrete ties and continuous welded rail known as CWR. Prior to the arrival of the Track Renewal Group, 1,600-foot long pieces of CWR, known as strings of rail, are distributed alongside of the track to be worked on. One of the first steps in our operation is to use various pieces of equipment to move the CWR, or strings of rail, from the side of the track into the center of the existing track. This is done to set the rail in position for the in-track welder, the next stop in the track renewal process. As the in-track welder sets up, obstacles and obstructions such as crossings, bridges, and switches are identified and prepared to minimize delays to the track renewal train, or TRT. The truck-mounted in-track welder is an electronic flash weld system that uses rail positioning cart to match up the ends of two strings of rail and fuses them into one continuous piece of CWR. After the in-track weld is completed, the starting and stopping points for the TRT, known as cut-ins and cut-outs, are prepared for the arrival of the track renewal train itself, which is the next step in the renewal process. The TRT consists of the tie laying machine itself and a series of gantry cars, so named for the rail system that allows gantry, or overhead cranes, to move from car to car. These gantry cranes carry both new and old ties and transport 21 new concrete ties per trip. The operation utilizes 3 gantry cranes, which work in tandem to shuttle new concrete ties from the far end of the train towards the machine, returning with the old wood ties to reload the recently emptied gantry cars. Each day, the TRT starts out with approximately 30 gantry cars. Depending on the car, they are loaded with either 168 or 210 new concrete ties. As we move forward to the tie laying machine itself, the new CWR is threaded into a series of rollers, bringing it from the center of the track to the outside of the machine. As the machine proceeds forward, the old rail is unfastened from the ties by pulling out spikes with a hydraulic spike puller, and then utilizes a magnet system to pick up and pile old spikes and other metal to be loaded by equipment later in the renewal process. As the new concrete ties are brought forward to be placed on the new tie conveyor by the gantry cranes, a load of wood ties already positioned on the accumulator table are then picked up and taken to the other end of the train. At this point in the machine, you can see the new concrete ties traveling towards installation over the top of the old wood ties that were just removed from the track. Next, the old rail comes out of the track and passes over the new rail. The weight of the machine is supported by a watch band sled. During this part of the operation, while all the rail is on the outside of the machine, the old ties are loaded on a conveyor and taken up to the accumulator table to be prepared for the gantry cranes to pick up. After the wood ties are removed, a V-shaped plow removes the ballast and makes a level roadbed, and the new concrete ties are dropped into position and then spaced to 2-foot centers. After the ties are in position, the new rail travels through an induction heater to bring the rail to the neutral temperature for the area being worked. This is to allow for the expansion and contraction of the rail throughout the year as the temperature fluctuates with the seasons. After being heated to the neutral temperature, the rail is lined up and seated into the new concrete ties. After the rail is in position, a clipper machine fastens the rail to the tie with an elastic fastener known as a clip. This is what the track looks like immediately behind the TRT, with the rail completely fastened to the ties but sitting on bare ground. As you can see, the old rail is now positioned alongside of the track, which leads to the next part of our operation, the cleanup of old rail and scrap materials. To clean up the old rail, we utilize a rail pickup train, which uses another set of rollers to guide the rail onto the train. This train consists of 50 slots or pockets that hold 1,600 feet of rail apiece. When fully loaded, this equates to the train holding 80,000 total feet of used rail. After the rail has been loaded, a car-moving vehicle pulling gondolas and car-top loading cranes pick up the pieces of scrap wood, metal, and other materials lying alongside of the track. All materials are sorted, with the usable materials being recycled. At this point in the operation, all of the new material is installed in the track and all of the old material has been removed. Upon completion of the process, we now begin putting the new track up to standard. For the next phase of work, any crossings that have been temporarily installed are removed, and a ballast undercutter removes all material from underneath the track. It then sorts out any reusable rock, which is returned to the track, and then discharges all dirt and fine matter. This leaves a windrow of dirt, which will either be hauled away or leveled out to form a right-of-way road. Any reclaimed rock and the additional newly distributed ballast is then used to raise and line the track to the proper height and alignment. A laser and lighting system are utilized to form a uniform track structure. The remaining applications are used to move the rock between the rails and the shoulder. Then the track is dressed to conform with the Union Pacific standards. In recapping, our track renewal group has taken existing track, such as the adjacent track shown, and completely replaced it with new concrete ties and new larger rail. All other structures, such as switches and crossings, are also replaced as part of our procedure, as shown in this picture of a newly installed public crossing. When the track renewal group comes into an area for a work assignment, we typically hold one main line or the other for 24 hours a day over a 9-day period. During this time frame, our usual amount of area covered in a production would be 1.8 to 2 miles of track per day. With the gang stretched out to accommodate all sections the room to work, it covers a minimum of 6 miles, and in some instances 8 to 10 miles of track are needed. While working on the track, adjacent main line remains in service for train traffic to be routed around our work. The track renewal group encompasses roughly 250 men, from the planning stages through the final product. Also included in our group is our staff of mechanics, which maintain and repair our extensive line of equipment. We consider the track renewal group to truly be a complete reconstruction of our work area and an overall improvement to both the track and the surrounding area. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to witness a brief glimpse into how the Track Renewal Group operates, and we hope it enabled you to get a better understanding of our day-to-day operations.
As you can see, it's a very complex machine. It's a very coordinated effort with multiple entities. It's not just this equipment going through town, but it takes a lot of work and coordination to make this happen. And what we've seen from Fort Worth so far, they're very well organized, and so far it's pretty amazing to watch how they've been staying on track. Again, they travel all over the country doing this, so this isn't their first time to be doing this. And let me talk a little bit about traffic control. Road Safe, I introduced Mr. Joe Burke in the back. He's with Road Safe Traffic Systems, and he's the traffic control consultant who works hand in hand with UP. And naturally, for the last 6 weeks, we've probably become his worst enemy or his best buddy. I'm not real sure how he feels about that, but we've probably been on the phone with him quite a bit, talking to him about this coordinated plan. As you've seen, for the last 30 plus days, we've had DMS signs, over 30 DMS signs scattered throughout the city as far as I-20 and I-30 on the north, trying to give people advance notice. Recently, you probably have seen the is dynamic message signs, electronic portable boards that you see. We've actually moved those to the railroad crossing, some of those a little bit closer, to say this crossing is going to be closed on a specific date. So again, we tried to get the communication out there as far as the traffic control. Road Safe will also be providing temporary flagging, and be aware, you could always some of the roadways that will be open, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Those could have just real quick temporary closings here and there as certain equipment goes by just for safety reasons, so just be aware of that. Again, this equipment's travel all over the country. As you can see here, I think one of their last projects was LA. They've worked in nearly every major big city, and it's something that, again, they're only doing the North track line this year. We don't know exactly when, next 12, 18, 24 months, they'll be back to do the same thing on the track on the south side. So hopefully after this project, we'll do a lessons learned. Anything we need to improve, we'll hopefully improve upon that and be better prepared when they come through the next time. One thing that we're doing, this is a very coordinated effort with our police and fire individuals, and we have representatives here in case there's some questions there, and I'll kind of touch upon what they're doing, but if you have any detailed questions, they're here to give you more information. But it's a very coordinated effort between us, police, fire, again, Road Safe, UP, to come up with a coordinated plan. And what we're going to be doing is we have a traffic management center. The traffic management center will be open 16 hours a day or on an as-needed basis. If we need to stay open longer, we will, depending on exactly the conditions that we're dealing with. Again, hopefully we've encouraged people to take alternate routes, but if the congestion gets really bad, we'll be in our traffic management center. We have the ability to control all our signals by the desktop. We have traffic management cameras that we can see what's going on, and we have the ability to look at signal timing, and depending how the congestion is, we can make those real-time signal timing changes at any given moment. So that's something we're going to be doing to hopefully minimize the congestion on the roadways that will be open. Again, we do encourage you to use alternate routes. Some of those alternate routes are, of course, on the west end, 820, Green Oaks Boulevard, the grade crossing at Division Street will naturally always be open. Felder Road is a good grade crossing, 360 and even 161 on the east side, depending. Kind of my advice that I've been giving everybody is kind of start the perimeters, depending where your route, where you're starting and ending. Work the perimeters and work your way in. It's going to get very congested in town. Forest Edge and West Street, I know there's been a little bit of discussion. Those both will be open. They will be manned, I believe, 24 hours a day by our police staff to ensure that those are very narrow crossings. They have some height restrictions and width restrictions, and they can be a challenge, especially for big trucks. So they will be staffed 24/7 with our police staff, because no trucks will be allowed to go through there, because the last thing we need is a box van or something, a bigger type truck, to get stuck and create those are going to get congested just naturally because they're low volume roadways. So as they're open, I'm not going to strongly encourage you to use those roadways because they're going to be very difficult. And anybody who's been in this part of town when just Cooper Street's closed or something, or Collins is closed, just even when one of those crossings is closed, West Street gets overwhelmed. So you can imagine when we have up to 5 or even maybe six roadways closed at the same time, what the congestion levels are going to be. So while those are going to be open, I'm still going to encourage you to use more our grade separations, Fielder, Green Oaks, and if you can, use 820, 360 and kind of work your way, go around and then come back in, depending whether you need to be on the north or south side of the railroad tracks. Again, I strongly encourage you to visit our webpage, myarlingtontx.com. We'll give you real live updates. Again, I've given you the schedule a little bit, when we anticipate those crossings to be closed, but we will be in constant communication, updating that webpage on exactly when those crossings are closed. And it'll be pretty simple. It's just a map showing red and green. You can also look at our traffic management cameras. I believe we have upwards of 27 traffic management cameras that you'll be able to click on and actually look to see what the congestion levels look like. It's just a still photo. It's going to be updated every 5 minutes, but it'll give you an idea if you want to plan ahead. Well, how congested is Fielder Road, or how congested is Green Oaks Boulevard? You'll be able to look at the traffic management cameras. Again, not real live video, but this can be no more than 5 minutes old in time. So again, we're not real sure how congested those at-grade crossings are going to be. If nobody wants to take alternate routes, I can assure you they're going to be very congested. So again, please plan ahead, and hopefully we can minimize the congestion levels. A little bit from a public safety standpoint, again, it's a very coordinated effort. We manage this pretty much like we have the tornado that we had early last year, event operations at Cowboy Stadium or Ranger Ballpark. We'll operate our emergency operations center. It'll be staffed 16 hours a day, or as an as-needed basis. If the congestion levels are bad and we need to stay around longer to help do what we can to minimize that, we will. So the emergency operations, it'll be staffed again, police, fire, and naturally public works staff, our own staff. And from a fire standpoint, they're actually Fire Station 1. A lot of you may be wondering, that's a fire station right down the street here by West Street. That is a challenging fire station because of West Street's congested, and what's going to happen with that emergency equipment, they're actually going to relocate one of their pieces of equipment on the north side of the tracks, because that Fire Station 1 does serve UTA, is one of, serves south, and UTA be one of its major entities, but it also serves an area north. So they're actually going to reposition some of their equipment and staffing so they have equipment on the north and south side so they can provide the coverage that's needed. Though also from an ambulance standpoint, additional ambulances will be north and south to make sure that if there is an emergency situation, one of our biggest concerns is these roadways are going to be congested, and if there's an accident, we want to be very responsive, take care of the accident, and get it cleared as quick as possible. For example, if there's a wreck on the Fielder Road Bridge or Green Oak, something like that. So we're trying to station fire apparatus, police staffing to be able to respond to situations along this corridor as they may arise. Same thing with Kelly McKnight Services. We'll have them stationed strategically throughout this area to hopefully respond in a quick manner, because if there is an accident, it's going to be very, very important that we get that cleaned up and taken care of as quick as possible to get the roadways, I guess, somewhat back to normal. What to expect, again, I've already touched upon it. At the worst case, come Saturday, you could have up to 5 roadways closed. Sunday, there may be a little bit of overlap, but the worst case is probably going to be this weekend. We have 5 crossings closed at once. Again, Davis, Cooper, Center, Mesquite, and Collins. And then when Stadium Drive, which is the next crossing, hopefully Davis will open, but again, that's the plan. Can't guarantee you that. So again, plan ahead, think about where you want to go. This equipment, as you saw, the video didn't really let you hear the noise, but I can assure you it's fairly noisy. You're going to have a lot of activity for early morning hours into the evening. If there's equipment breakdown, they have to do their mechanical repairs overnight. So, hopefully that doesn't happen, because we want to keep the project on track and there's equipment moving. But just be aware that if they need to do mechanical repairs at night, they will be doing that, because they're under a very tight schedule, come the next morning when the crews show up, this 250-person crew, they need to go back, they need to go to work, and they don't need to be waiting on their equipment. So please bear with us a little bit on the noise. One good thing is when this equipment goes by, that I think that's probably the noisiest part of the operation, but there's going to be a lot of activity even before and after when this equipment is in your area. The crossings will be closed 24 hours a day, if I didn't make that clear already. And as I already talked about, this is just basically phase one. They're going to redo the north track, and then they'll come back and redo the south track at a later date. We've had a very coordinated effort with all the UTAs. You can see they're here. We coordinated with AISD, with the hospitals, trash collection, emergency providers. We've been reaching out to those to make sure that they adjust their routes and make sure they can provide the service that they need under these conditions. Again, encourage you to go to our website for the updates. We have an interactive map that will be there. I've already talked about the traffic management cameras, the daily update. Again, I think there's an online, if you want to be on Facebook, Twitter. I think Rebecca Rodriguez is here. She can get you hooked up if you want some of those real live tweets or Facebook if you're into that side of the business. Rebecca's here, and I'll let her tell you how to actually get connected there and how to sign up. But again, we're going to be putting out constant messages. As you've seen in the newspaper, the TV stations, there's been quite a bit of publicity. So hopefully everybody has heard the message and you plan ahead. And if we can get people to take alternate routes, we can keep the congestion levels to a minimum. But we're here to hopefully minimize that impact, do what we can to manage it from a police, public safety standpoint, and then again to keep the congestion down to a minimum. So without further ado, I will. That's the end of my presentation, and I will be happy to open it up to questions. Mr. Luke.
Several years ago, we replaced the material at the tracks to make it a smoother crossing. And then when they redid the crossings for the quiet zones, some of that got out of whack, especially if the Davis Drive crossing. It's really rough. And I noticed in the film, they're going to redo the crossings, and it looked like put in something would smooth that out. Is that your understanding of it? Is it going to make the track crossing smoother?
Yeah, let me repeat the question so everybody can hear, and actually for the recording is basically the question was, when the crossings at the street crossings, will the concrete pads, will those be smoothed out to make them as good or better than what they were? I can tell you they are going to replace all the concrete pads in the crossing. I'm going to be very honest with you. One of my concerns is the grade elevation of this north track may be a little bit different than the other track during the interim until the southern track gets replaced. So I think the crossings will be better, but we're going to have to kind of watch that grade difference. That could, for a short time here until that south track comes in, it could make it a little bit rougher. But they will replace all the pads, concrete pads. A lot of them through town have busted up. So this is actually good timing from that standpoint. Some of those crossings do need to be redone. So that is part of this project. So other than this grade difference, hopefully they will be better than what they were.
Well, if they could just make the transition between rails as smooth as possible, we'd all appreciate it.
I agree with you. I can assure you after the first one's done, we're going to be the first ones out there before it's ever opened up to traffic, making sure that everything's been done possible to make it as smooth as possible. Yes.
Traffic on Division Street that wants to use the Fielder Road overpass to go south, that's already incredibly dangerous to get up on there and do that, particularly like at rush hour. Will there be a police presence or something to make that a safer traffic route?
The question is on Division Street, how you, especially on the north side, that turn where you want to go, especially if you want to go southbound on Fielder Road, is where we have an officer there to help make that left turn. And if Fielder Road's congested, we have exactly the same concern. Even if you're trying to make the left turn to go south, or even if you just want to make the right turn go north, if it's heavily congested, that could be a challenge, as because you're making that turn and cars are coming over the bridge. That's something we're going to monitor, and if we need to put an officer there, we will. We've intimately talked about that, so that'll be one thing we're watching very closely, depending on the congestion levels, and if we need to put an officer there, we will. Yes.
I have a couple questions. I regularly
sorry, use what?
Or regular use of forested.
Oh, okay.
Is that going to be safe once you put all this concrete up on top? Because it doesn't look safe now, but I use it all the time because I like it.
Okay. Yeah, the question was with forest edge overhead, you're actually, the roadway's going, you're going underneath the railroad tracks, and with this new rock or ballast, is it going to be safe? What I saw in Fort Worth is actually will come in and there may be a short time where they close that for a few minutes as they're passing through with that equipment, or what I've seen in Fort Worth, they actually put up plywood to help that rock so the rock doesn't fall on top of the car. So yeah, I can assure you, UP is safety conscious, and they will be doing everything they can. And they'll close the roadway when they're physically working there. They'll have flaggers there that just may have to close it temporarily as they do a little bit of the work. But there's no long-term closures anticipated there. So just, again, don't be surprised if you show up that there's a flagger there saying don't go through, but it's for your safety as they're working overhead or something.
And when those new concrete pieces are up there, that's not going to collapse on me?
No. The concrete pieces, the concrete ties are actually on solid ground. But you are right. Some of that loose rock could find its way down below. So, but they're fully aware of that.
And one other question. This looks really cool to me. I mean, I love trains. Just got back from a train trip. Are you setting up like observation places? People are going to want to see this happening.
Yeah, the question was, is there going to be an observation place where you can see the train? I don't know if UP, from a safety standpoint, if they really want to, I don't know if we want to encourage just some localized point. You'll see it when it goes by.
So we're going to be driving by and they're going to do that. And you do it when you drive by Six Flags. Can you imagine when all this is going on?
Yeah, there's probably some people wanting to do that. So again, that's part of especially where we have the grade crossings to keep traffic moving. The police will be there to encourage the people to drive, not sit there and watch. But we went and watched it in Fort Worth, and it's a really neat piece of equipment to watch. So,
It looks like it would be.
yeah. But it is noisy. I can assure you, it has some noise attached to it. So.
Once this is completed, does this increase the tonnage that the trains can weigh going through, or is this just to replace the wooden ties?
The question was, with the new track replacement, will allow for an increased tonnage on the trains? And looked at Clinton, he says, no, it does not. Yes.
Will they be diverting some of their trains so the southbound one is a less active tractor this time?
The question is, will it be some of the train traffic be diverted? I would assume naturally, because you have two tracks, and one's going to be taken out of service during this time frame. So yes, I think a certain percentage of, because they only have one track available, so some trains will be diverted.
And will it make the progress slower for the Bowen Road cross? That's the road I use the most, so the Bowen Road crossing, if it's still an active train track, will that crossing time take longer than normal during this work?
The question was, with Bowen Road, with the track that will be in operation, how will that impact the Bowen Road crossing? I don't think it really should have much of an impact. That maybe there'll be less trains there, because rather than two tracks and having those number of trains, you'll have less trains there. But
Very limited where it's a 90-car train, it'll take twice as long to get through the intersection.
yeah, I'll let Clint answer that one.
Yeah, Clint Shobitsky, Union Pacific Railroad. We're going to lower speeds, I think, down to 40 miles an hour is I think the speed that we've done it in Fort Worth. I don't know what the average is, but it's a little higher than that, closer to 50 to 60, and it shouldn't add but maybe a minute or two to the actual train while it's occupying the crossing. The other thing, when we are utilizing the south track for trains going past the work crew, I know Arlington has had a quiet zone in place for some time. The approaching trains will sound their horn in two short blasts as they're passing the work crews, so the work crews know that there's an oncoming train.
I see another hand. Anybody else? Okay.
Repeat for me, you said Bowen will be open, just closed briefly the 17th, but when do you think they're going to come back and close it for a more extended period?
The question is when will Bowen Road since it's not being, that crossing's not being replaced, is when will they come back to that? We don't have that schedule at this time. Again,
anticipated within the next month or like 6 months from now?
Probably closer to 6 months.
Okay.
Clint said 6 months approximately. Again, there's, once we have that schedule, we'll get that notice out, but at this point, we don't know exactly. Yes.
I know that you think that this information has gone out. Everybody that I talked to has known nothing about it, except for one person who was pretty sure that somehow you're going to put a train track down to 20, because they saw one of your mobile signs down there, and they wondered how you were gonna get a train track down to 20. But I'm talking to people, and none of them have any idea that this is happening.
Yeah, the question is with all even our public communication efforts, is the public really been informed? Again, we've done what we think is a very comprehensive communication plan, but I agree with you. I talked to a lot of people that, and some of them a couple of them have even been in this building, City Hall employees, who aren't even fully aware of it. So that's the reason we moved the dynamic message signs to the railroad track saying this crossing is going to be closed and we've given the date. So you know, the people who are first timers in Arlington who are just traveling through, it's going to be hard for them to have that information. But the people who regularly commute across the railroad track, we hope they've received the message by now. But we anticipate the first day will be probably fairly bad, and hopefully people will learn after that. But again, we're going to be here for you and work our emergency operations center, our traffic management center to minimize that inconvenience as much as possible. Yes.
It went by me kind of fast, but you said Davis will open about the time that Great Southwest Parkway starts. Is that right or wrong?
The question was, when will Davis Drive open? It'll actually, theoretically, in a perfect world, when Stadium Drive closes, Davis Drive will open. Again, right now, Stadium Drive is scheduled to be closed Saturday the 19th. So theoretically, Davis Drive will open. There may be a little bit of overlap there, but again, but worst case, plan ahead, assume they're all going to be closed at once, and that would be 6 crossings closed at once if Stadium and Davis are closed at the same time. So.
But if everything went well, Davis might open by the 21st.
Theoretically, Davis would open by the 19th when Stadium Drive is being closed. That's perfect world. So just, if I were planning my route, I'd assume they're all closed. Yes.
Is it the intention when this project is finally completed to increase the average speeds of trains? Presumably with this smooth track, that's a capability. These double-decker trains that perhaps aren't blowing make tremendous noise even at 50, 60 miles an hour.
The question was, with these new tracks and concrete ties, will the speed of the trains be increased? No, that's not the plan. I believe there's an agreement that the trains can only travel so fast. Hopefully, in a perfect world, they'll be a little bit quieter, running at their current speeds that they run today, with the new track and better underlayment, you know, concrete ties and things like that. But no, the plan is not to increase the speeds, no. You notice it didn't blow its horn, though. The quiet zone worked, at least for now. Yes.
Will it make the rails safer and derailments less likely to occur?
The question was, will this work on the tracks make the rails derailment safer? I would assume, you know, with cross ties that last longer, what it's going to do is minimize the frequency of the maintenance on the tracks. That we know for sure, because wooden cross ties, average maybe 7 to 10 years life, where the concrete, still not known for sure, but you know, they're going to last 20 plus years. I think that's safe to assume. So you're going to see less maintenance. So yeah, I think some of those derailments had their own unique circumstances. So I can't guarantee you anything when it comes to that. Yes. The question was, can the old railroad ties be recycled? I think, as the video says, what materials can be recycled will be. So I think some of them absolutely could be. Some of them are,
And when I say treated wood,
yeah, I mean, I see a lot of cross-tie retaining walls. I don't know exactly how they function on the railroads, but I mean, you can look at cross-ties. Some of them are solid, and then some of them just are rotting a lot quicker than others. So I think some of them could be used, and I think all the metal different things could be recycled. And I think the video touched upon that a little bit. All right, we'll stay around the rest of the evening if you have any questions. Again, thank you for coming this evening.